Hey guys, I am back with another sketchbook tour for you, and I am mostly recovered from my wisdom teeth removal. One of my goals for 2019 was to finish my incomplete sketchbooks. I had a bunch of partially used sketchbooks, and before I was tempted to buy some more, I told myself that I needed to finish the ones I had. So I've slowly been working towards that this year, and I'm excited to share with you my latest one that I've completed. So this is the sketchbook we'll be looking at, and if you are familiar around here, it should be familiar to you because I have shared several paintings that I've done in it over the past few weeks. I think we should just jump right in. This is a Strathmore 400 watercolor sketchbook. It has 12 painting pages and it has kind of white like protector pages. Some people sketch on these, but I just kind of leave them blank to protect the watercolor paintings. But the first painting in here is one I did of water when I was kind of testing out the sketchbook, and I was just kind of trying to do some water that was reflecting some like orange light and was just messing around. It's watercolor with Dr. P.H. Martin's white Bombay ink to kind of help with some of the highlights. It's just kind of a fun painting to kind of mess around and do something that you don't normally paint or try. Okay, and the next one is a leaf I did last October, and just trying to get as realistic as I can. Let me kind of get a little closer for you to look at. This paper is better than like your average sketchbook paper to paint on because it is watercolor paper, and it's alright watercolor paper. It's Strathmore 400. So it can take some layers and it can take some glazing, but I did notice as I worked in it, I got a little frustrated because I couldn't do as many as I was used to because I work a lot with arches. That's what all of my professional paintings that I sell and things like that are done on, and it can take a lot of layers, it can take a lot of abuse, and so I can only push it so far on the Strathmore paper. But this was a fun little sketch to do, and I really like that shadow right there. Okay, so this one's just one of peaches, and you can tell with the texture on here and some of that sheen, this was a mixed media piece. I did the base layers in watercolor, and then was just kind of messing around, seeing what it was like to layer pencil. And by the look of the pencil and the feel of it, I would think I was using my Prismacolor Premier pencils. There's that one. And I don't know when I did that one. I didn't date that one. The next one is a little landscape I did in early August of this year. So I kind of worked through my other sketchbook, and then that I did a previous sketchbook tour on. And then after that one was done, I kind of put my focus on this sketchbook. The fun thing about this sketchbook versus my other one is this one I could do a lot more like detailed work, and I spent a lot more time trying watercolor pieces. If you've seen my other sketchbook tour I did this year, that sketchbook is one that I always kept in my purse, and I took it on vacation, and so it was just kind of really rough sketches. It was just lay down some quick color and do some inking on top, and it was like done in the car and just with my kids around me and just different things. So it was just like a quick and dirty sketchbook just to have something fun to do while traveling. And so this one I've purposely took a little bit more time. Some of these paintings took a couple hours. But this piece in particular, I think the reference photo I used for this one was Ree Drummond, the Pioneer Woman. She did an Instagram stories where she was sharing the sunset from her walk. And so I just painted that day to kind of get back into watercolor painting. sometimes if I have like a watercolor commission or something come up and I haven't painted in a while, or I've been traveling a lot or whatever and haven't had a chance to paint, I'll do some sketchbook paintings to kind of get back in the habit of doing art before I start on commissions or bigger projects. So there's that one. And then the next one is just a little galaxy painting. These ones are really simple paintings to do. They're not super complex. I'm sure you've probably seen videos of them on YouTube and Facebook. They're pretty popular, but they're really fun to do, especially if you don't know what to paint and you just want to lay color down. These ones are really fun, and I wanted to try and use my really pretty opera pink paint from Daniel Smith, and I have his Moon Glow watercolor. That's this dark watercolor paint that it's kind of purpley, and when it granulates out it kind of gets these like pinky purple flecks right there, and it's just a really pretty watercolor, and it's one of my favorites to work on, and I thought that would be a really cool sky to kind of get the visual granulations and just different things from it. So this one has a lot of layers to get it dark and all the different textures and depth of color, and then the stars and planets and things like that are done with Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay India ink. That's what I typically use for my whites. I like it a lot of the time because it's permanent once you put it down, and so I can put layers over the top, or I can kind of dull it down by tapping it with my finger, and I don't worry about it coming back off, and it stays vibrant if I want it to. Sometimes with gouache, I've noticed it kind of comes back up, or sometimes it can look kind of gray, and it can pick up the paint from underneath it, and I just don't really like it most of the time. So that's why I just use the India ink. And then the next one is kind of a fall landscape painting, and I did this one in August as well. This, I was using a reference photo I took last year when I went to visit my family in the end of fall. I think it was in November, before everything started getting super cold, and took this picture from the back of one of my uncle's houses, and there's all farmland back there, and just used it. I kept it pretty muted because sometimes in the fall everything starts dying off and gets pretty muted. There's just maybe a hint of green, and everything else is pretty yellow, and only a few trees have leaves still. And for the grass I used masking fluid to kind of help preserve some of the highlights, and I was really intentional. Sometimes I can overdo it with the masking fluid, but with this one I was really intentional on how I laid it down, and I was the layers I did with it. So I was really excited with how the grassy spots turned out. This one you guys should be familiar with. This one's of Yellowstone, from my travels this summer. There's a full video of this one. And this one as well. This one's Grand Teton National Park, which is right next to Yellowstone National Park. And this is a spot we had our picnic at. Oh, pretty awesome to look at this awesome view while eating our peanut butter sandwiches and enjoying traveling. And this one is also a video. This one was from hiking here in Billings up on the rims. This one was a really fun one to do. It's really different than what I normally paint, and I'm really proud of how this one turned out. You can see how the trees closest to the light are kind of are warmer. They're not a cool black. They have some orange and red in them. That's to kind of help give that glow effect. So I was really excited with this piece. And then the wisdom tooth painting, this is one I did while I was waiting for my pain medication to kick in, when my wisdom teeth were coming in before they could be removed. And so this was my painting of distraction. So this one's off the Beartooth Highway, which is just outside Yellowstone. It takes you right to one of the entrances. Then there's this one. This one was a really fun one to do. This was a reference photo I took last winter traveling back from visiting family. And we drove through Island Park, and everything was covered in snow, and it was all glistening, and it was gorgeous. And so when I was driving by, I saw this. There's a couple of rivers that run by, and when I passed this, it looked so like picturesque. I had to find a shoulder to stop on, which they get so much snow there, sometimes you can't find a shoulder to pull over on. But I found one and put on I was wearing cowboy boots, and so I pulled those up really good, tucked my pants into them to try to avoid getting snow in, and I hiked through some like 2 feet of snow to get this picture. It was pretty comical, but I got it so I could have the reference photo for it. And then I ran back to the car, took my boots off, shook out all of the snow, and put my feet under the heater to try to get them to dry. But when I was painting this one, I used some metallic ink on it, the Dr. P.H. Martin's iridescent ink, and it was really, I thought it added a fun shimmer and shine, because if you've been out in snow a lot, you know, on like if it's a sunny day, you can get some really cool sparkle effects on the snow. So I was really excited with that one. And I recorded this one, a full-length video for this. So if you guys want me to do a voiceover and kind of share how I did this painting, let me know and I will post that for you. So there's that one. Oh, I was going to mention, when I did this painting, I also wanted to, part of the reason why I chose it is because I wanted to do a monotone painting, or a single color painting. And so for the most part, I only used blue. At the very end, I added just a hint of brown to it, and a few things to kind of help with a bit of contrast. But other than that brown, everything was just different shades of blue and white. So it was a really fun way to challenge myself painting-wise. The next one is a painting of the harvest moon we had back in September. I actually painted this painting on the night of the harvest moon, but because I couldn't sleep. But when it was raining here, so we couldn't see the moon on Friday the 13th. But when I woke up with my jaw pain and started painting, I went outside to look at the moon and I took a picture, and then I decided to paint it a couple days later. So just a fun painting. It was really fun to do the moon and capture the clouds that were kind of going by and the little bit of glow they had. And it was fun looking at all the different craters on the moon and kind of trying to do a subtle like yellow glow to it, but without making it too yellow. So this was a really fun painting and was almost another monotone painting. But I tried to, in the black, I don't know if you can really see it, but I tried to kind of make the black sky interesting. So it's not just like blue or black. There's some like purpley pinks in there that I added to it to kind of help give it a little bit of depth and interest. And then there's this one from my summer travels. This is Star Valley, and this is a mixed media painting as well. This was done with watercolor for the base layers, and then I used a mixture of colored pencils and the white ink to kind of add highlights and detail to it as well. Sometimes I find if I need to do lots of layers and this paper isn't accepting those layers, sometimes I move to color pencil to kind of add that color down as needed. But Star Valley is a gorgeous place, and it was really fun to stop and take some pictures there this summer. And I have a bunch more that I plan on painting full size when I get the chance. Okay, so this painting, my husband jokes, is my drugged up painting. I worked on this painting while I was recovering from wisdom tooth removal surgery. So I had 3 wisdom teeth removed, and my face was swollen and my jaw hurt, and some people recover pretty quickly. I did all right, but having kids and things like that can kind of slow down your recovery because you don't get a rest quite as much as you wanted. But day 3 after my wisdom teeth removal, I was kind of bored. I was also on a lot of painkillers, so I wanted to paint, and so I grabbed my sketchbook and watercolor pencils and started working on this. And it was evening, and I was working on it in my bedroom, and one of the light bulbs had just burned out, and we don't have lamps or anything in there, so I just kind of had this yellow light that I was working from. And so I laid some color down and then got tired and I went to bed, and then over the course of the next couple days I worked on it. Being kind of out of it and not really paying attention, it wasn't looking so hot, and as I felt better, I was able to better analyze what I was painting and realize this needed some help. And so I went downstairs and I added some regular watercolor over the top to kind of help with it. This paper is really smooth, and so I've noticed it doesn't take watercolor pencil or pencil in general super great, especially if you have to do lots of layers. So I used regular watercolor over it, and that helped. And then I thought it needed some more help, so I used the colored pencils with it to kind of give it some texture. And I used some pen, like a micron marker, to kind of help give some branches and details like that. And then I was like, it still needs some help, because in the painting, this tree is all backlit, and especially in the reference photo, and all these leaves kind of glow a bright yellow color. And then you have like a strong contrast, and the grass is kind of glowing. But having not really paid attention at the beginning of the painting, I'd kind of lost the opportunity to make those brighter. So what I ended up doing was getting my Dr. P.H. Martin's iridescent ink out and added the yellow one to the edges of the leaves where the light would be shining through the brightest, to try and help give it some of that glow. And I added some in the grass, and then I used an orangey copper one to add to the tips of some of the trees and bushes in the background, and the grassy bush in the front. So kind of just, this painting was just several days of just trying to salvage the work that I had done before. But it's a memory and it's fun. The reference photo for this is from a walking area that's over by the Yellowstone River, and we took it in the fall. So it was a fun reminder of that evening with my family. And then this is the last piece, and I did this just a couple days ago when most of the painkillers had worn off and I was feeling pretty good and just trying to get back into painting again with actual focus before I started on a few commissions I have lined up. And this is a scene I took from a reference photo from a hike that we did on the Beartooth Highway last summer, I think it was. Not this year, but the previous year. It was, I think the reference photo for this was end of August, early September, which it's kind of the end of summer here in the lower elevations, but it is like the beginning of fall, sometimes mid-fall on those higher elevations. And so the leaves were starting to change, all the grass was starting to turn more yellow, it was losing some of its green saturation, but there was a couple flowers that we were able to find, and so I wanted to remember that, and I thought it was a fun change in perspective instead of doing like big sweeping landscape pictures that everything's kind of at a distance, kind of be a little bit closer and have a little bit more detail that way. My focus with this one was to really make sure the trees that were the furthest away were the least detailed, and then as they got a little bit closer, have more detail, and the same with the grass to kind of help with that depth, to kind of give perspective and depth in this painting. For me, sometimes it's really easy to just jump into a painting, and I love detail, and so I'll add detail to everything. And because of that, I lose kind of the depth in the painting, and I lose some of the interest and the focus, having a focus on where I want the eyes to go when they're looking at it. So this was one that I was just kind of forcing myself to pay attention to that and know where I wanted the eye to go when I was painting. But there we have it. That is this sketchbook completely finished. And I'm excited to put it with the other ones that are finished and start on the next couple sketchbooks I have to finish by the end of the year. If you like this video and like my other ones, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more of what I do, please hit the subscribe button.